Right now, a minor mistake in your text messages costs you an awkward apology. You fix it in seconds, hit send again, and life moves on without a single ripple. Now take away your phone. Strip away global satellite networks, instant digital messaging, and real-time clarification. Place yourself in July of 1945, holding the absolute fate of millions of human lives on a single, translated sheet of paper. Every choice you make is permanent. Every single word you choose carries the weight of total destruction. One mistranslated word didn't just cause a heated diplomatic argument behind closed doors. It ended 2 vibrant cities. It incinerated over 200,000 innocent human beings in a fraction of a single second. How does a simple linguistic ambiguity trigger the most destructive weapon in human history? The answer isn't what your history books told you. By mid-1945, the European continent had finally fallen silent. Nazi Germany was utterly destroyed, Adolf Hitler was dead, and Allied forces were sweeping through the ruins of Berlin. But across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, the nightmare burned on with unrelenting fury. The Japanese military was battered, their navy was crippled, and their cities were subjected to ruthless night-after-night firebombing campaigns. Yet, the fanatical leadership in Tokyo refused to give up the fight. To bring a definitive end to the bloodshed, the leaders of the Allied powers gathered in Potsdam, Germany. They spent days drafting an uncompromising ultimatum aimed directly at the Japanese government. It was known as the Potsdam Declaration. Its core terms were brutally simple: absolute, unconditional surrender of all Japanese armed forces. If Japan accepted, the war ended immediately. If they refused, the ultimatum promised prompt and utter destruction on a scale the world had never witnessed before. In Tokyo, Prime Minister Kantaro Suzuki found himself trapped in an impossible political vice. The military hardliners within his own cabinet wanted to fight to the absolute death, arming civilians with bamboo spears to repel a predicted American invasion. On the other side, moderate diplomatic factions secretly wanted to negotiate a peaceful end to the conflict. Suzuki needed to buy crucial time. He called a high-stakes press conference to issue a holding statement while his cabinet analyzed the Allied terms in secret. To bridge the gap between peace and total destruction, Suzuki selected a specific, classic Japanese word, Mokusatsu. The word Mokusatsu is constructed from 2 distinct root concepts in the Japanese language. First, moku, which translates to silence or quiet reflection. Second, satsu, which translates directly to kill or extinguish. When these 2 concepts are combined into a single phrase, it carries 2 completely different operational meanings depending entirely on the context and the speaker's intent. To Prime Minister Suzuki and his internal cabinet, Mokusatsu meant, "We are holding our official comment for now. We treat the matter with silent reserve while we deliberate." It was a classic diplomatic delay tactic designed to appease domestic factions without closing the door on peace. However, to foreign translators, Western news agencies, and American intelligence officers working around the clock under extreme pressure, the word carried its alternate, far more aggressive definition. They translated Mokusatsu as, "We reject this ultimatum with utter contempt. We kill it with silence." Within hours of Suzuki's press briefing, international news wires blared terrifying headlines across the entire globe. Japan had officially sneered at the Potsdam Declaration and dismissed the Allied offer of peace. Here is what nobody tells you about that critical moment in Tokyo. Kantaro Suzuki was not trying to sound strong or arrogant to the international community. He was walking a microscopic tightrope over an imminent, armed military coup. If he sounded too soft on the Allies, extremist military officers would have executed him in his office that very night and taken total control of the state. If he sounded too aggressive, he risked inviting Armageddon upon his people. He picked ambiguous words strictly to buy 36 hours of time. Instead, he pulled the pin on a nuclear grenade. Across the globe in Washington, President Harry S. Truman read the intercepted intelligence summaries. To the American High Command, Japan's public statement was not viewed as a temporary pause or a diplomatic hesitation. It was read as a direct, aggressive declaration of defiance against the United Nations. American military planners had already calculated the horrific human cost of a full-scale amphibious invasion of the Japanese home islands, codenamed Operation Downfall. They projected hundreds of thousands of Allied casualties and millions of Japanese deaths in brutal house-to-house combat. Truman and his advisors wanted a decisive, immediate end to the war that would force Japan's hand without sacrificing more soldiers on the beaches. The apparent public rejection of the Potsdam Declaration provided the ultimate justification. The operational order was cleared without further debate. On the morning of August 6, 1945, a solitary B-29 bomber named the Enola Gay lifted off from the island of Tinian, carrying a single atomic bomb toward the city of Hiroshima. Think about the sheer, terrifying speed of this sequence of events. A carefully worded press conference in Tokyo. A mistranslated wire dispatch in Washington. An atomic bomb dropped just 3 days later, reshaping human history forever. Popular historical narratives love to construct a simple, satisfying villain. It is easy and comforting to blame a single clumsy translator or an arrogant Japanese politician for the dawn of the atomic age. But the historical truth is far darker and much more complex. Did the translation error around Mokusatsu cause the nuclear bombing all by itself? Absolutely not. Declassified primary records reveal that American military leadership had already selected target cities and prepared the atomic weapons weeks before the Potsdam Declaration was even published. The bomb was almost certainly going to be used regardless of diplomatic maneuvering. However, the tragic translation error destroyed the absolute final diplomatic emergency brake. It instantly shut down the narrow window where back-channel peace negotiations could have altered the timeline and prevented the atomic strikes. Language was not just a passive tool of communication in 1945. It acted as an accelerating catalyst that pushed an existing, unstoppable war machine past the point of no return. We live today in a hyper-connected world where we instantly transmit billions of words across the planet in milliseconds. We take for granted that our true intent and subtle nuances will survive the journey. But history offers us a stark, devastating warning. Human conflict rarely begins with pure, calculated malice. Far more often, it begins with misunderstanding. The silence of Mokusatsu was intended to buy a few hours of political safety. Instead, it ran out the clock on over 200,000 human lives. It remains a grim reminder that real power does not just live in the barrel of a gun or the core of an atom bomb, but in the fragile, incredibly dangerous precision of the words we choose.